Emily sat very still in her late father's study, the dim afternoon light falling across the heavy oak desk and shelves lined with dusty books. The room still smelled faintly of his cologne, a comforting scent that always made her feel safe. But now her hands were cold, and her heart was beating too fast. The door to the hallway had not closed completely when she came in. Through the small opening, she heard voices, low and urgent. At first, she thought it was just Diana, her stepmother, talking on the phone. But then she recognized the deep, clipped tone of her Uncle Charles and the sharper sound of her cousin Lydia's laughter. Emily held her breath and leaned closer. "She doesn't belong here," Charles muttered. "I told you we can't wait any longer," Diana whispered. "If we don't get her out for good before the papers are finalized, it will all slip through our fingers." "Don't worry," Lydia said, her voice like a thin smile. "We'll handle her. She's too soft to fight back." Emily's heart thudded so hard she was afraid they might hear it. Get her out for good. What did they mean? Did they plan to cheat her out of her inheritance? Or was it something worse? The conversation continued, words darting back and forth like knives. "Charles," Diana said firmly, "make sure the lawyer is on our side. No mistakes this time." "And if she refuses to sign?" Lydia asked. "Then we make her sign," Charles replied flatly. Emily felt the walls pressing in, the study suddenly too small, too close. A drop of sweat slid down her spine. She wanted to run, to push the door open and scream at them, but her legs wouldn't move. Her father had been gone barely 2 months. This house, this room, was all she had left of him. And now the people who were supposed to be family, the ones who smiled at her over breakfast, were whispering about removing her like she was nothing. She backed away from the door as quietly as she could, praying the old floorboards wouldn't creak. Every sound seemed louder than it should have been. The ticking clock, her own breath, the rustle of papers on the desk. When she finally slipped out into the corridor, she felt dizzy, like she'd stepped into someone else's nightmare. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. They were planning something. And it was aimed at her. Emily pressed a hand against her chest, trying to steady her heartbeat. Whatever they were plotting, she had to find out. Because one thing was now terribly clear. She wasn't safe in her own home. Her father was her protector, her anchor. Her mother had died when she was just 5 years old, too young to understand what death really meant. All she knew was that her world suddenly felt empty, and only her father's steady presence made it bearable. He worked long hours but always found time to sit by her bed at night, reading her favorite stories until she fell asleep. Whenever she woke from a bad dream, he would hold her close and whisper, "I'm here, Emmy. I'll always be here." For years, it felt true. He was her shield from everything bad in the world. But then he remarried. Diana came into their lives when Emily was 12. At first, Diana seemed kind, polite smiles, sweet words, and gentle hugs. But it didn't take long before the warmth cooled. Diana never shouted, never openly scolded Emily. Instead, she chipped away at her in quiet ways. If Emily made a mistake, Diana made sure her father knew. If Emily did something well, Diana brushed it off as luck. And when Lydia, Diana's niece, came to live with them after her own mother's death, everything changed even more. Lydia was 2 years older, confident and charming. Diana treated her like a daughter, praising her for every little thing. Emily, meanwhile, became invisible. The house no longer felt like home. It felt like a place where she had to earn permission just to belong. Still, Emily loved her father too much to complain. He was happy, or at least he thought he was, and she didn't want to spoil that. So she learned to stay quiet, to keep her head down, and to grow a strong heart that didn't show its cracks. As the years passed, Emily became a young woman, calm, resilient, and careful with her words. She worked hard at school and later found a job as a paralegal. She liked the work. It was steady, predictable, and gave her a sense of purpose. But it didn't pay much, and she still lived at home with her father. Then, 2 months ago, everything fell apart. Her father died suddenly of a heart attack. No warning, no last goodbye, just gone. The house that had once felt safe now felt cold, even hostile. Diana barely spoke to her except to criticize. Lydia was always around, watching Emily with a faint smirk. Uncle Charles started visiting more often, his voice too smooth, his questions too pointed. Everyone seemed to be waiting for something. That something was the will. It hadn't been read yet. Emily knew her father wouldn't leave her with nothing. He loved her too much. But Diana, Lydia, and Charles seemed confident, almost eager. They whispered in corners, fell silent when Emily walked into the room, and smiled as though they knew a secret she didn't. Money had never mattered to Emily. What mattered was the house, her father's study, his books, his desk, everything that reminded her of him. It was the only piece of him she still had. But she was financially dependent on what was left of his estate. If they pushed her out, she had nowhere to go. She tried to focus on her work at the law office, telling herself that as long as she kept her job, she'd manage somehow. But late at night, lying awake in her room, she couldn't shake the fear pressing on her chest. What if they found a way to take everything? What if they convinced the lawyer that Emily had no claim? What if they forced her to leave the only home she'd ever known? Emily had always believed that family meant love and loyalty. Now she wasn't sure it meant anything at all. And if Diana, Lydia, and Charles succeeded in whatever they were planning, Emily stood to lose not just her inheritance, but her father's legacy, her home, and every memory tied to it. Her father secretly changed his will 2 months before his death, leaving most of the estate to Emily. She found out by accident one late evening while searching his study for an old photograph. Emily had been sitting at his desk, running her fingers across the smooth wood, when she noticed that the bottom drawer was stuck. After tugging it open, she found a sealed envelope with her name on it. Inside were papers, legal documents, and as she read through them, her breath caught. Her father had changed his will, making her the main heir. The house, the land, almost everything, it would all go to her. Tears stung her eyes. It was proof of what she already knew. Her father had loved her and wanted her safe. But it also explained something else. Why Diana, Uncle Charles, and Lydia had been acting so strange. The cold looks, the whispered conversations, the sudden pressure to sign random, household papers she didn't understand. They knew, or at least suspected. Emily's hands trembled as she called her best friend Maya that night. Maya listened carefully as Emily told her everything. "Emily, you have to protect yourself," Maya said firmly. "They're not going to just accept this. Make copies of those papers. Hide them somewhere safe. And don't tell anyone you found them." Emily followed her advice. She copied the documents and stored them in Maya's apartment, far from Diana's reach. But after that night, Emily began noticing strange things. First, her car brakes failed on the way to work. The mechanic said they had been tampered with. Emily tried to convince herself it was a coincidence, but deep down she knew better. Next came the note. She found it slipped under her bedroom door in the morning. No name, no handwriting she recognized. Just 4 words written in black ink. "You should leave now." At breakfast that day, Diana poured her tea with an overly sweet smile, asking if Emily was sleeping well and taking care of herself. Lydia giggled at nothing in particular, like she was in on some private joke. Emily's stomach twisted with dread. These weren't harmless games. This wasn't just about money anymore. They were trying to scare her. Or worse. One evening, after double-checking the locks on her bedroom door, Emily sat on her bed shaking. She clutched her father's papers against her chest, as if they could protect her. It was then that the truth hit her with full force. They weren't just after her inheritance. They were willing to destroy her to take it. And if she didn't do something fast, they might succeed. Lydia spreads rumors to paint Emily as unstable. She whispers to neighbors, to family friends, even to the house staff, saying Emily is nervous, forgetful, and not quite herself, since her father died. Soon, Emily notices the sideways glances, the awkward silences when she enters a room. People are starting to believe the lies. Charles adds to the pressure. One afternoon, he comes to Emily with a stack of papers. "Just sign these," he says smoothly. "It's for the good of the family. Housekeeping matters, nothing important." But when Emily glances at the fine print, the language is confusing. She doesn't fully understand it, and Charles becomes impatient when she hesitates. "You don't trust me?" he snaps. "I'm only trying to help you." Diana plays her own game. Whenever Emily mentions feeling unsafe or notices strange things, doors left open, items moved in her room, Diana smiles sweetly and says, "Oh, Emily, you're imagining things. You've been so tense lately. Maybe you need rest, dear." Her calm voice makes Emily doubt herself, even when she knows something is wrong. "You're ungrateful," Diana adds one night over dinner. We've done everything for you, and all you do is complain. The house feels colder every day, the walls closing in. But instead of breaking down, Emily grows more determined. She begins secretly gathering evidence, recording whispered conversations behind doors, copying any document she finds that looks suspicious, and sending everything to Maya for safekeeping. She even records Charles angrily telling Diana that Emily needs to be removed before the will is read. Still, fear eats at her. At night, Emily lies awake, wondering if she should run, leave everything behind, just to be safe. But then she remembers her father's voice, steady and warm. "I'll always take care of you, Emmy." She knows he trusted her to be strong. She can't let him down. The betrayal cuts even deeper when Emily discovers the truth about Charles. While going through the study, she finds proof that he bribed the family lawyer to challenge her father's will. The lawyer had been paid to question its validity, to make it look like Emily forged it herself. The realization makes Emily's hands shake with rage. They're not just lying, they're trying to destroy her name. The tension finally explodes at dinner one night. The family sits around the long table, silverware glinting under the chandelier. Emily tries to stay quiet, but Diana fixes her with a cold smile. "You don't belong here, Emily," Diana says softly, as if sharing a secret. "And soon you won't be here at all." Lydia laughs under her breath. Charles just watches, his eyes hard. Emily feels her throat tighten, but she forces herself not to cry. She lowers her gaze, pretending to eat, while inside her mind races. They think she's weak. They think she'll give up. But Emily knows now there's no going back. She will not be silent. She will not sign anything. She will not let them steal her father's legacy, even if it means fighting her own family to the very end. The family calls an emergency meeting, in the dining room with the lawyer present. The long table is set, not with food, but with documents neatly stacked in front of Charles. Diana sits at the head of the table, her face calm and cold. Lydia looks nervous but tries to hide it behind a forced smile. "Emily," Charles says smoothly, "this is just a formality. We need your signature to clear up a few matters regarding the estate. Nothing to worry about." Emily takes the offered pen but does not touch the paper. "What exactly am I signing?" she asks, her voice even. "It's just to make sure everything is divided fairly," Diana says, leaning forward. "You wouldn't want to make trouble, would you? Your father wouldn't want that." Lydia adds, "Everyone knows you're overwhelmed. Let us help you. Just sign it." Emily glances at the lawyer, who avoids her eyes. Something is very wrong. She sets the pen down. "No," she says simply. Charles's friendly mask cracks. "Don't be foolish. You're in no position to argue with us." Diana sighs dramatically. "Emily, you're being paranoid again. If you cared about this family at all, you'd do the right thing." Emily feels her heart pounding, but she keeps her face calm. "The right thing," she says softly. "You mean giving up everything my father left me?" The room goes silent for a moment. Then Charles slams his fist on the table. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Yes," Emily says, her voice clear and strong now. "Ido." She reaches into her bag and places a folder on the table. "I have copies of my father's will, the one leaving almost everything to me. I also have recordings of your conversations about removing me. And Charles, I have proof you bribed the family lawyer to challenge the will." Lydia's face turns pale. "That's not true." "It's true." Emily cuts her off. "And before you think of taking this folder, I've already given copies to my best friend. She's keeping them safe." Diana narrows her eyes. "You wouldn't dare expose your own family." Emily leans forward. "I already did. I filed everything in court 2 days ago. The lawyer you paid off is under investigation as we speak." The color drains from Charles's face. "You little." He lunges halfway out of his chair, but Diana grabs his arm. Lydia starts to cry, her voice shaking. "I didn't want to do this, Emily. They made me." "Enough," Charles shouts, glaring at both women. "We're not letting her take everything." Emily doesn't flinch. "You can't stop me. This isn't just about money. This is about my father's trust, and I'm not signing anything." Diana tries one last trick. Her voice softens, dripping with false sweetness. "Emily dear, you're confused. We only wanted to protect you. You're too young to handle such responsibility. Just listen to us. We're your family." Emily shakes her head slowly. Family doesn't try to ruin your life. The room falls silent again, but now the power has shifted. For the first time, Emily feels no fear. She stands, her voice steady. This meeting is over. The next time you see me will be in court. Charles glares at her with pure rage. Lydia hides her face in her hands, sobbing. Diana forces a smile that doesn't reach her eyes, but even she knows it's finished. Emily walks out without looking back. For the first time in months, she feels free. She didn't just defend herself, she beat them at their own game. After weeks of hearings, Emily is declared the rightful heir to her father's estate. The court makes its decision clear. The will is valid, and all attempts to challenge it were dishonest. Charles is charged with fraud for bribing the lawyer. His angry shouting in court earns him no sympathy. Diana and Lydia are forced to leave the mansion, packing their things in silence, their confident smiles gone. When the dust settles, Emily finally walks through her father's home, now fully hers. The rooms feel different. The air is lighter without the constant whispers and tension. But the memories are still there, pressed into every wall and every creak of the floorboards. She steps into her father's study, the room where everything began. The books are neatly arranged, the heavy desk just as he left it. Emily takes a framed photograph of her father and sets it carefully in the center of the desk. Her eyes sting with tears, but this time they are warm, not frightened. She runs her fingers along the frame and whispers, "I kept your promise alive." Behind her, Maya leans against the doorframe, smiling softly. She has been by Emily's side through every long night, every court date, every frightening moment. "You did it," Maya says. "You fought back." Emily nods, breathing in the quiet of the room. "I didn't do it alone. You were here. You're more family than they ever were." The house feels safe now, not just because Emily owns it, but because she finally has peace. She knows her father would be proud. As she walks from room to room, she remembers how close she came to losing everything. Her home, her security, even her sense of self. But instead of breaking, she grew stronger. She is no longer the quiet girl they thought they could push aside. She is the woman her father believed in. When she reaches the front steps, Emily looks back at the mansion one last time. It doesn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It feels like home. Maya slips an arm around her shoulder, and together they walk inside, ready to start a new chapter. Emily sits on the porch at sunset, the sky glowing orange and pink above the wide lawn. A soft breeze moves through the trees as she signs the last of the papers on her lap. These papers will create a foundation in her father's name, a place that will help young women fight legal battles over inheritance and abuse, just like she did. Maya sits beside her, holding a stack of folders. "That's it," Maya says with a smile. "It's official now. Your father's name is going to protect a lot of people." Emily nods slowly, feeling a deep calm settle over her. "That's what he would have wanted," she whispers. She sets the pen down and looks out at the fading sun. For months, this house had felt like a prison. Now it feels like a promise. She remembers the fear, the lies, the betrayal, and how close she came to losing everything. But instead of letting it break her, she turned it into something stronger. Emily picks up her father's photograph from the small table beside her chair. The smiling face in the frame seems to shine in the golden light. "We did it, Dad," she murmurs. "I kept your promise alive." Maya squeezes her hand gently. "You didn't just win," she says. "You made sure no one else has to fight alone." Emily smiles softly, a quiet, peaceful smile. The kind that comes when the battle is over and the future feels open again. She has turned betrayal into strength, not just for herself, but for others who will one day stand where she stood. As the sun slips below the horizon, Emily leans back in her chair, listening to the crickets begin to sing. The house behind her is warm and safe. The path ahead is clear. For the first time in a long time, she feels completely free. Hi friends, thanks so much for sticking around till the end. Don't forget to like, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button. See you next time.